Okay, we're recording. So again, just thank you for being here. I love seeing all of you. I love that we're here, and I'm excited today to talk about turning on your pleasure. But before we do that, as we are accustomed to doing and you're comfortable with, and even those of you who are a little bit new, I'm going to invite you to just let go and drop any pen or anything you're holding in your hand. And if you're seated, I invite you to uncross your legs. See if you can plant your feet on the ground. We're going to take a moment to just drop into your body and feel your body. So if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes. If you prefer to keep your eyes open, just look down at your body. And I want you to just take a big, deep breath in, fill your lungs, expand your ribs, and just really go there for a moment. See if you can tune out everything on the outside. Give yourself permission, your mind, to know that everything you're thinking about, everything you have today, after this call will be there waiting for you. You don't need to hold on to it now or remember it now, but give yourself permission to be fully present for the next 55 minutes here on this call, this investment that you've made in yourself to show up for you, to connect more with your divine feminine, listening to your intuition in your body. See if you can just quiet the mind and focus on your breath as you inhale, expanding your ribs and your lungs. And when you exhale, I want you to think about just letting go of everything. Any old stagnant air from the night before, any thoughts that are keeping you occupied, just be here for a moment. Breathing. See if you can bring your attention to your heart beating in your chest. Can you feel your heart? And as you're breathing, drop your shoulders away from your ears and see if you can just kind of soften a little bit. I'm going to invite you to bring your right ear to your right shoulder. Drop that left shoulder and just get a really good stretch on your neck, very gentle and loving. If you want to bring your hand in to kind of massage your neck, you can do that. But just gently loving touch on your neck. Remembering to breathe and exhale. When you exhale, just let it go a little bit. Roll your chin down to your chest and stretch the back of your neck. And again, just breathing in, making space. And when you exhale, let that head drop, that chin drop just a little bit more. And breathing in again. And on the next exhale, I want you to roll your left ear to your left shoulder. Drop that left shoulder down and your right shoulder down. And now feel a good stretch on this side of your neck. And just breathe in. And when you exhale, let it go, soften. And now I want you to roll your head back and look all the way up and stretch your throat and your chin. Really get a good stretch. Might feel good to wiggle your jaw, open your mouth back and forth. Wiggle that jaw. Open it up. Open up your throat. You might need to swallow. You might need to cough or yawn. Let whatever's in your throat open up and soften. And just notice the tension or the softness in your throat. Take in one more big inhale, making space and room in your throat. And then bring your chin down parallel to the floor. With your eyes still closed, chin parallel, drop your shoulders away. And I want you to take in another big inhale. Breathe into your back body, expand your lungs and your ribs, take up space. Be in the room. And on the exhale, let it all go. And when you're ready, you can blink open your eyes. Just a simple couple of minutes to just connect with your body is really important. Most of the times we wake up with an alarm, it goes off. We're like out of bed, taking care of other people while we're getting ourselves ready, multitasking. We've got a lot going on. And that's the gift of being a woman, is that we multitask really well. And on the flip side of that, one of the things is that We don't often just slow down to just be with ourselves. So for the next 45 minutes, I invite you to just be here and really connect and tune in to you, okay? See what comes up for you. Today, we're going to talk about pleasure. And when we talk about pleasure, I want you to say the word to yourself, I receive. I receive. And how does that feel? Notice in your body when you say, I receive. Do you contract and kind of like, oh, I don't know if I feel comfortable with that. I'm so used to giving. See if you can say that and like let your body have the response that it has. I just want you to notice that we're going to do this again at the end. We're going to tune back in and see if we're a little bit more open to receive. But if you say, I receive, how does that feel in your body? Just notice. Just notice. I'm going to invite you today to give yourself permission for pleasure. We don't do that often enough. And when I talk about pleasure, I want to be very, very clear. I'm not talking about sexual pleasure, although you can absolutely categorize that into what we're talking about. And in a deeper masterclass, we go into that. But today I'm talking about pleasure in everything that you do and making pleasure a priority. In order to make pleasure a priority, you have to know what you want, though, right? You have to know what you desire. And there's a difference between a need, a want, and a desire. The desire, when I say that word, there's like a fire in your belly. It's like it's the thing that's there. You don't even have to think about it. It's not in your mind, but it's just like that burning thing that's within you. This is what turn on means. Turn on is to turn on that fire, to turn on that passion, to turn on that desire within you. And this, my loves, is how when you walk into a room, people are like, whoa. You know those women that walk in the room and everybody kind of looks and you're like, whoa. This comes from that desire deep, deep inside. And she's turned on because she's living in pleasure, living in passion, and living a turned on life. Finding pleasure is perhaps a little bit easier than you think. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Here's the reason why we want to create pleasure in our lives. When we create pleasure and we're living a life of pleasure, you're turned on from the inside. And this has a ripple effect in all areas of your life. If you want your business to thrive, live a turned on life. When you're turned on, you're radiating. You're like this magnet. You're this light that's like attracting people just by being who you be. How many times do we get caught up in our head of like, oh, here are all the things I need to do for my business today. Check, 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 check. It's all outside of you. It's all in your mind. But if you can flip that and you can design your life in a way that you fuel and fill yourselves up first, that your cup is not empty, that you're just overflowing with all of this love and all of this goodness and all of this light, the amount of effort that you will need is less. And in fact, I would say that it becomes the way that you live an easy life. This is how life gets to be easy. So when you turn that on, when you feel alive and when this is coming up for you, you're not on autopilot. So again, you have to really make a conscious effort because this is how the divine feminine moves through the world. And we as women and all of us in this group are very, very good at being in our masculine. We are really good at getting shit done. We are really good at like running things. You run your household, you're running a business perhaps, or whatever organization or group that you belong to, you're doing that. And there's a lot of structure, which we talked about this back in November, the masculine and the feminine. We need this structure. That structure creates safety and foundation so that we can then flow with life. So it's really important to do that. But today we're not talking about that masculine piece and we're not talking about that structure. We're talking about how do you flow and how do you allow yourselves this freedom and flexibility to really be present in the moment and just feel more of like what feels good to my body. Let's go and talk about what pleasure is not, okay? Pleasure is not reward. It's not transactional. It's not things you need to do. and it's not tied to guilt. How many of you, when the word pleasure is spoken, you even do a little bit of like ooh, is that a naughty word? I don't even know if I can like read that or dive into that. There's a book I absolutely love. It's called Pussy. And she says in the very beginning of the book that in the forward, if you're reading this book, congratulations. Most people won't even pick up the book because of the title. So, how does that land with you, right? To hear that word. I'm going to go here for a minute. Most women don't even know what your anatomy is. Most women haven't even taken the opportunity to like spend time with yourself in that way because there's so much guilt and shame tied to that. And there's so much programming around that. And there might be some disconnect because of things that have happened in your life. And so I'm just going to invite you to be gentle with yourself and take your time, but see if you can release and let go of any guilt or shame. And just be curious and open to what pleasure is for you and what feels good to you in all areas of this, okay? Pleasure is also not just manicures and pedicures, and it's more than a 5-day girls' trip or retreat, although that can absolutely activate and turn on pleasure. But pleasure is something that you're doing every day, all day, every day, all day. So if you're open to this, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start to write down some things that are pleasurable, that are included in pleasure, and how you can create a pleasure list. Okay, because I'm all about doing the thing while we're on the call and not giving you homework. You got plenty of things to do after you get off this call. So let's take advantage of this time that we have. But if you have a piece of paper, great. If you don't, I'm going to drop this here in the chat. You can have this for later as well. But all you need to do, and I'll show you this, all you need to do is just get a piece of paper and draw a line down it. Can you see that? A line down it. And on the left-hand side, you're going to put cost money. And on the right-hand side, you're going to put no money. And here's why. Because if it costs you money every time you want to tune into pleasure, that can be a challenge. And if you can start to think of things that do bring you pleasure that don't cost money, you can access that all the time, right? Because it's not that the money is an obstacle, but most of the time when we bring in money, you have to schedule something, right? It's like there's an exchange here. So it's like, oh, I want a massage. Let me call and book the massage for a later day. Or, oh, I want to go purchase this thing. Well, I need to have time to go do the thing. But when you find and you create a pleasure list with things that do not cost you money, you can access them immediately. So that's the intention here, is that we can access them immediately. So I'm going to do two things quickly. I am going to bring you into this pleasure list. All right. Perfect. And if everybody have a pen, paper, raise your hand. Everybody have that. If you don't, take a minute or take 30 seconds to get yourself a pen and paper. And then I'm going to share this with all of you so you can see it. So you're not going to see me for a minute, but you can definitely just see this, this pleasure list. Make your own. You don't even really need it, but here we go. All right. And can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So pleasure list with money on the left, without money on the right. Okay. So I want you to start thinking about things that bring you pleasure. Now, let me give you some ideas. Okay. Pleasure and things that bring you pleasure. Pleasure is available all the time to you, all the time. When I think about pleasure, I think about eating. What foods bring you pleasure? What do you enjoy? Like, oh, you just like, for me, things that are pleasurable are like, I love a smoothie when it's hot outside. When it's cold outside, I want warm soup. Those are two things that bring me pleasure. It's like, oh, this is so good. A good ripe strawberry. Oh, right? Like, is anything better than like a good ripe strawberry, or a piece of pineapple or watermelon, because watermelon's only in season in the summer. I want you to start thinking about things like that. Like, what are things that you love to eat that bring you pleasure? Other things that could bring you pleasure, bathing. So when you take a bath or a shower, like, are there specific products that you like? Are there smells that you like? Is it just simply running a warm bath and being able to get in the bath with candles or music? Or just what if it's like no one even walking in your room? Moms, do you feel me on that? How many times do you go to get into the bath and someone's like, Mom, right? Or someone needs something from you. So, what are the things that you really, really enjoy that bring you pleasure, right? That cost money and don't cost money. You don't have to do these at the same or at, one column and then the next, but I want you to start writing down some things that pop in your mind. It could be going for a walk. It could be simply sitting outside and like letting the sun hit your face. One of my simple pleasures is just being in the car by myself because I get to pick the music I want to listen to. And I really love it. And I like singing loud and I like just jamming in the car by myself. Um, Here's some other things. What about the way you dress? You know, like how many times whatever's under your clothes, you're thinking about someone else? Or what about dressing for you? How do you feel when you put on like a nice matching set of bra and panties under your clothes for no one else except for you, just for you, because you know what's under there and you know how that makes you feel. And maybe there's a little bit of a sparkle or a twinkle within you that nobody else knows, but that could be something, right? It's just being really intentional. So think about some things, okay, that bring you pleasure. It could be a good book. It could be, you know, going to a yoga class by yourself and like no time, no time. What are things that bring you pleasure and what are things that cost money and things that don't cost money? And I'm going to give you about 2 minutes here and I want you to just start writing it down. Here's why we're writing it down, because right now, as we're talking about it, you might be like, I don't really know. I've never done this. I never really thought about this. Okay, that's why we're doing it. But when you write this down and when you start to make a list and you have a list, you're going to be able to access it easily in the moment because you've already taken the time to do it. And then you can tune into creating and having more pleasure in your life. So just take a minute while I get some music on here. And just writing down some of the things in your life that bring you pleasure. Okay, let's see. All right. And then we're going to share too. So if you only come up with 3 or 4, that's great. No big deal. Just write down what you know brings you pleasure. And then what's going to happen is we're going to learn from each other. Maybe just like 30 more seconds, and then we'll start to share some of these. Okay. If your screen is off, I'm going to invite you to turn your screen on. And I want you to just come as you are. It's just us girls, and we're all here. And so if you can turn your screen on, I invite you to do that. And appreciate you showing your face and showing up. So we're talking about this pleasure, right? Like what lights you up? What stokes your fire, that desire? Let's start with the things that cost money. This one tends to be a little bit easier, I think. But I'd love to hear who wants to start. Anyone? We're going to ask everyone to share. So you can just unmute yourself. Yeah, great, Erica. Start for us.
So it's interesting. I started thinking about it and it wasn't difficult. I started finding I have a lot of joy in my life, or I create a lot of joy. But and as you said, money is always the easier, right? I love Orange Theory. It's literally my go-to, my therapy, my every day I start the day like that. I love skiing. I love getting my nails done. I love to work. It gives me really a lot of pleasure. I love to travel. I love massages. I love the beach. I love to do breath work. You know, it's kind of getting my hair done, dinner with friends, golf. But then I started thinking about the things, the little things, right? The things that are not as big and not as spectacular. And I started thinking just sitting on an airplane by myself. You said it in the car, right? Like in the airplane and just appreciating, like nobody's asking me a question. I can do whatever. A walk in the airport before I get on the flight, a workout outside, texting with my group of girlfriends, which is kind of like, you know, just about nothing important, just, you know, texting, getting ready in the morning for the day. It gives me a lot of pleasure. So I'm not going to keep everybody up, but it's kind of a fun exercise for sure.
It is. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody get any ideas from some of the things that Erica said? That's the point of this. We want to share. And so you just get to hear what other women have to say and share those things. And yeah, it's interesting, right? It's easy to find like the big things that bring us pleasure, like vacation. Yeah, of course, like sitting on the beach, mostly for all of us, or doing things like that. And the exercise part of this, right? Like the part that feels like a little bit challenging maybe is to think about your everyday life. Like, what are the things that bring you pleasure in like everyday life? Because here's what I know. When we can find pleasure in everyday life and even in the pain, even when it feels like this is so painful or this is so hard or I don't know how to navigate this, when you can find the pleasure in it, which can also sound sometimes like joy or gratitude. So just know that you can kind of interchange these words. I like to use the word pleasure because it's a little bit activating. And so on purpose, I like to use that word. And I believe that there's something very empowering as a female when we can speak about our pleasure. But you can think about it in a way of like my joy list or like what am I grateful for or what, what really makes me happy. Who's next? Who wants to share? I'd love to hear some of these like nitty gritty things that, yeah, Courtney, please.
Yeah, actually, the no money ones were easier. I've done this with Kate before, but for me, the no money ones were a little bit easier. and it's probably because I have done it before, but my money ones is I love like I call it like decadent grocery shopping where there's like I can walk to the Harmons in my neighborhood and which is a high-end grocery store here in Utah. And I absolutely adore not having an agenda and like walking around and just buying whatever sounds delicious. Like, you know, I don't, that's like really pleasurable to me. I love like a slow meal.
Mhm.
Um, so one of the reasons, like anything that takes a long time to eat, that you're just there enjoying. Like a glass of red wine is probably one of my favorite pleasures. And I love really high-end clean sheets. Like I feel like if I could have someone change my sheets every day like that would be goals, right? Um, my no money list, uh, a slow walk with like no agenda, sun on my face. We have a sauna. I absolutely love the pleasure of sweating in the sauna. There's something very pleasurable in that. Dancing in the kitchen, a spicy book on my Kindle, the ritual of a cup of
Do you mind sharing with us one of those spicy books?
oh, yeah, I really like Elsie Silver's books, if anyone
Okay.
read those. Um, I did, I, d- I read a lot, but I tend to read a lot of mindset, spiritual, and business books. And so on the weekends, I allow myself, just like a whatever reads. And so I love the ritual of just preparing a cup of tea,
Mhm.
Jo Malone perfume.
Mm.
And one, I really love it when my closet is highly organized or like, and my like area of our bathroom, our primary bath is super organized when I open it up. Like there's something very pleasurable about me opening it up and my perfumes are all where and my face stuff's all together and my makeup is all perfectly. There's something just like same with my closet. Like I color coordinate my closet and I love opening it up and it's all, you know, that feels like pleasure to me.
Mhm.
So that
Thank
was
you.
the list I came up with.
I love it. I wrote a lot of these down. How many times did Courtney say slow? Anyone pay attention to that? I love that. I mean, I wrote it down 5 times. Slow. There's something to this about slowing down. So, my question to you, and I want you to think about this for a minute. What are things you're already doing that you can slow down? Would that bring you more pleasure if you just like being? This is what being is. This is the thing that we're striving for. We're trying to be. How do you be present in the moment? How do you be? We're really good at living in the past. You know, if you live in the past, that's usually where depression lies. Just if you're ever feeling depressed, you might want to ask yourself, what am I focused on? It's usually something in the past. And if you're feeling anxiety, you're usually focused on the future. Okay. So anxiety lives in the future and depression lives in the past. But that being, what if you just slow down everything you're doing? What if you walk slower? Girls, I have a friend who is like, literally, she's like walking art. I'm not kidding. Like the way she moves her body, the way she walks in a room. I love studying humans. I love watching humans. I love it's what that's one of my simple pleasures. I love just people watching and just observing. And she just has this way that she moves through the world. And the truth is, it's who she is. She like walks on her tiptoes almost, and it's how she moves through the world. And she doesn't turn it on or off. It's just like who she is. But even in the way she moves and walks, it's very deliberate and sensual and flowy. And I mean, like, I get pleasure out of witnessing and watching her walk and move through the world. So I get inspired by that. And then I feel like, Kate, slow down. Like sometimes I'm just grinding and moving and fast and hard. How many times do you nick your fingers or like you're like going too fast? It's like, oh, shoot. Or like whatever, like you fall or trip. It's like those are moments that it's like, slow down, be more intentional, like be more deliberate, walk softly on the earth, slow it down, move in a way that feels like graceful and methodical. And so, Courtney, thank you for bringing up slow. Just like, what are you already doing that you could just like slow it down? So that's an idea. The other thing I love is that Court brought up reading a spicy book. How many of us are reading a self-help, personal development, something like that to like be better? All of us, every one of us. Okay. So yes, that's amazing and wonderful. We all are here for that. And how often do you read just for pleasure? Yes. Yes. So reading for pleasure, bring that back if you haven't in a while. And again, I love that here we are doing this again, and Courtney's done it before. And every time you do it, it gets easier and it gets deeper. It gets deeper, right? It's like, and we have different seasons of life. So you might be like crushing it and doing it and really aware. And then we circle back and you're like, oh yeah, it's been a while. I'm going to like come back to that. And it's a good time of year to come back to that. It's a really good time of year to be aware of what am I doing? How can I slow down and bring more pleasure in? The other thing I loved was this preparing again, tea or coffee. But again, I heard the word slow and making it a ritual. There are lots of things that we're doing too that you can make a ritual. When I used to do my skincare routine, I used to like pump the lotion fast or the soap fast. It's just like fast and hard in my whole hands and everything. And now I just do a little bit on these two fingers and I just kind of do slow and massage my face and kind of like rub it, like take your time. Like, what are you already doing that you could just slow down on? That feels like a big theme for this. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Courtney. And then who else loves organization? Even saying it when you were saying it, Court, I was like, oh, you're speaking my love language. Like, here's a challenge. Maybe organize a junk drawer. Maybe organize that drawer in your bathroom that has all your makeup and has all your stuff. Like, take the time to like clean that up a little bit so that every time you open it up, you feel pleasure and you're like, oh, I love this. Like, I'm excited to use this. When things are messy, I mean, it is what it is, but I think we just kind of go through it and our brain just kind of it resonates or like vibrates with that messiness. But when there's like clean and structured and organized, it's why I love to walk into like a Nordstrom or a Neiman Marcus or a high-end department store, because you walk in and it's the perfect temperature and it smells a certain way and there's like the lighting is just right and everything is displayed in a way versus, and again, girls, I love TJ Maxx, so let me be clear about this, but there's a different energy when I walk in TJ Maxx and I'm trying to go through every single thing to see what's there versus walking in a department store and it's like, here's this one thing, here's this one thing. So there's an energy to this. There's really this like energy to pleasure and why we gravitate towards certain things, why we like certain things. So how can you create a space in your home that feels very organized and very clean and very, like appealing, like you want to do that? And I can imagine my closet is also color coordinated. But it's great because I can walk in and go, ooh, what's my color today? Or like, what's the vibe? What am I feeling? And then go into that instead of everything just being, again, the TJ Maxx, right? Just like going through it. Thank you for sharing. Who else? Let's hear some more. Anybody getting good ideas? Raise your hand if you've gotten some good ideas. Yeah, I love this. This is the power of women coming together, the power of community and sharing. And who's next?
I
Okay,
can
yeah,
go.
thanks, Amy.
So it was funny because I thought for sure the cost money column would be my longer column because I am very much a consumer like most of us. And I do like to spoil myself, but actually my free column is almost double in length, which really surprised me. So just a few, because some of the ones that Erica said and you've said, Kate and Courtney, I had on my list, but some of the ones that really give me pleasure and are, and Erica will know this about me, being in my garden or my greenhouse and like planning out what my yard's going to look like, what I'm doing. Because typically my kids and my husband don't want to join me. So I can just turn on music and, I'm like singing my country music or listen to an audiobook, or even I take that time to sometimes just call a friend and talk for a while. Um, I really like the taste of fresh raspberries when they're in season. And I mean, I could eat a ton of those. The smell of my Osea body oil, every time I use it or use the bath oil, it just like brings so much calm. Um, Watching a sunset, being in nature, a quiet house where it's just me in the house. Um, a delicious, yummy, perfectly done latte. Um, Reading a good book, a delicious glass of Oregon Pinot Noir.
Let's get together. Yes.
Yeah, oh yeah. And then designing a vase of flowers, like going and buying, I love to buy flowers and making them for myself or delivering them to neighbors or friends, reading a book, doing my skincare routine and makeup. Like I was very surprised at how many things that I do are what bring me pleasure and that I gravitate towards them, and that my mental health, when I get to do some of those and slow down, I feel the most calm and connected to myself. Um, and then on the cost money, one of my favorite things is slowly walking through like a clothing boutique, a home store, a garden or nursery store, and just being able to zone out and really look at everything and finding new stores. There's some really good shops here in Salt Lake, which I didn't really realize until I started kind of really, finding one or a new one from different places. And dinner with friends. Anytime I do breath work, either with Kate, with you, or Mikal, or someone else, I really enjoy doing some of those breath work classes. Traveling, massage, girls trip. So
I love it. Thank you, Amy. I love that you reminded me that a lot of these things you've already chosen to implement in your life. And perhaps the reminder is just like slow down and savor it. Like you're already doing it. You're already doing it. So what if it's literally that easy? It's just like, what if you can make everything sacred? Make everything a ritual. Like give it gratitude. Thank you for this. For years and years, we prayed. And then when I left organized religion, we stopped praying. And it's really interesting because I've brought prayer back into my life. And like specifically the other night, we were sitting down for dinner and just thinking about like how grateful I am for like the food and the farmers and like those that, grew this crop and like how it got to the grocery store and then how we got it. And that feels very sacred to be in prayer and gratitude. And then like this ritual you mentioned of like your skincare. We're all of us are washing our faces and moisturizing daily, right? Like, I hope so. I believe we all are. So how do we get to just like feel the water splash on our faces? And like when we're rubbing that lotion on, like circular motions going up and just like, loving our skin. My daughter has bad acne, and I am convinced after 2 rounds of Accutane that it has nothing to do with the way it's being treated, that it's connected to gut health and honestly just the way she's talking to herself. I literally feel like her body is responding. Have you ever seen the experiment they did with the Petri dishes? There's like, the water and they're talking to it and you know, you've seen it. It's like, I hate you, you're ugly, whatever. And it's like, they freeze it and it's like not, it's disgusting and ugly and it doesn't, it's exactly it's exactly the energy that was put into it. And then the beautiful kind, like, you're beautiful, I love you. You're glowing. There's so much light. They end up being snowflakes. They look like snowflakes when it's frozen. And so the power of our word, and when you're doing these things, instead of looking at your face and picking apart the wrinkles or the sunspots or whatever, because we've all got them, we've lived long enough to all have them. What if instead of focusing on that, the focus could be shifted to love, gratitude, talking kindly to yourself, being sweet, being nice, being loving? Even that, in like the things that we're doing, will bring a lot more pleasure and a lot more joy and a lot more happiness. And Amy, you talked about breath work and how, you know, meditation and those things bring you joy and pleasure. I agree. And I love that that I get to see you and that you come. And I've got a sound bath happening on the last Sunday of the month on the 30th. And it's at my favorite place, y'all, because it's in the greenhouse, which Amy, I'm like, Amy, it's in the greenhouse at Shade Garden. And we literally go in and move. All the plants are on these like what do you call them? I always think it looks like a spool of a spool of thread, you know, but they're brown and they're like hold plants and they're all on those, and we just move them all back around. And Annie, you and Rob came to the sound bath there, and we just move them all to the sides and we put the mats in the middle. And then we do this guided sound bath meditation surrounded by these plants, and you can just like feel the energy of spring and renewal and fresh. And so, yes, any of these things that bring you joy, pleasure, happiness that you know about, lean in. Give yourself more of that. Anything that brings you pleasure, anything. And I would recommend minimum once a day, minimum one time a day, minimum. And what would your life look like? What would your day look like? And what would it feel like? What would it feel like to just slow down, take your time, and give yourself pleasure? And the second part of this is, what is that going to look like to your kids? What are they going to witness if they see a mom who's like loving herself and giving herself like the time and the space to like be all lit up? I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm learning with parenting that it's less about teaching and more about just being. It's like they're watching and they're aware of the energy, like it's tangible, like palpable, like it so matters what environment. Courtney does this really beautifully. She cooks dinner for her kids every night and creates this environment in her home where like kids come home and they come in and there's just like this welcoming. It's like, it's such a beautiful ritual. And I'm literally, I think it's a lost tradition these days to do family dinner. And I understand it, right? For me, I'm in my car driving kids to and from all the things they're doing all from 3 o'clock. And it can be really challenging to do that. And so, I've created, we do it in other ways. But there's such a beautiful thing about having family dinner every night and making it this ritual and like, sitting around a table again, sitting around a table and like slower. How many times are you standing up eating? How many times, right? Or like sitting in the car eating mindlessly, just like I'm multitasking. I'm eating and I'm standing, or I'm eating and I'm driving, or we're like going fast from one thing to the other. So again, coming back to this theme of like, slow it down, just slow down, just savor all of it, savor every bite. When you take that bite and you're sitting around the table, you know, is it like being just hunched over trying to hurry and faster? can you like swirl that in your mouth? You know, it's like that ripe strawberry or that ripe raspberry, Amy. I grow them too, and I love them. It's like popping them in my mouth, and it's just like, oh man, these don't taste like the ones in the grocery store. And being able to just savor and slow down and take our time. Um, I'm feeling inspired in this moment, so I'm going to go with it because I'm a manifesting generator, and my girl Courtney Brown over here who teaches about human design and astrology. And if you haven't tuned in to that recently, I encourage you to book with her because it's such a great tool to have in navigating life, whatever's happening in life, right? It's like there's this bird's eye perspective, and it's like, oh, this is part of the stars are aligned for this versus like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Or I'm not getting it right. It's like, no, it's all divinely orchestrated and timing. But Court tells me often that like lean into or go where like I'm being, inspired. And as we were talking, I just felt like I want to host a lunch for this Turn On community. And I'd like for us to do it. We can get dressed up and we can sit out on the patio and, have a lunch. My first thought was the Grand America because it's so grand and it's so beautiful. And you walk in that front and those flowers in the middle of the table, it's just like, and we talked about smelling fresh flowers. I think Amy talked about that. And we could just sit around the table and savor and talk. And so I'm going to get that on the calendar for all of us. And if there's a day that works better for you than other days, I'd love for you to drop that in the chat. Just say like Wednesdays are great or whatever, or like Fridays are a no for me or whatever, just because I want you to be there. And especially those of you who are here right now and live. And if it's the 5 of us, that's awesome. And if those of who are catching the recording late can join us and want to join us, I would love that too. But let's have a Turn On lunch where we get to incorporate all of these things, and maybe we get to, have a glass of wine and have some, some shared plates or like some of these things that we love so much, and just be in that energy of receiving and pleasure. And I want to do that sooner than later. So, and I want to give us all time, and I know schedules are busy. So you can just plan to see that coming up on the schedule, either maybe like, well, there's a lot of things happening in early April, but in the next, 3 weeks or so, maybe the end of March, I want to get that on, and we can create an opportunity to experience this together. Anyone else have anything that came up for you or you want to share as far as like pleasure list, cost, no cost? Yeah, Annie, thanks.
It gives me pleasure to share. So there's that. And everything that y'all said is on my list, except for the wine and coffee. It's not my jam, but I do love enjoying a sparkling cider or a sparkling juice as my celebratory drink. I also love singing, music, dancing, and I love to journal. I love it so much. Watering my plants, my house plants, taking photos, and I love being photographed as well. I love creating retreats or programs or classes and all of the little details and agendas and workbooks that go along with that. And as you were talking, Kate, some of these other things came up for me, but something I really love to do, and I noticed it a lot when I was in Costa Rica, is I love to honor my body publicly, because I'm not your typical sought after body frame. I'm a little bit curvy and plus size, and I've got, the cellulite and the things, and I love my body so much, genuinely, and I love to honor her publicly, especially after a beautiful, fit, curvy, what I think is like someone who's perfect. All bodies are perfect, but after a woman kind of degraded herself, and I love to be that rebellious one and be like, number one, you're beautiful, and I love my body. I love her. There are some things I do wish that I could change. Sometimes I get in that ego and that system bullshit, but it's so inspiring to other women to be the one who's like, look at me, I'm not your typical girl, but I fucking love my body. I love her. I love her to be naked in front of people. I love her to just be in her full glory. And it was so beautiful to see that inspire other people. That really brought me so much pleasure to just, number one, love this because it's been a journey. And then number two, inspire other people to just fucking love what you're in, love the skin you're in. So being a rebel is also pleasurable to me, but that's a good way to be a rebel and honor my body.
Thank you, Annie. I love that. I I believe that all women are on a journey of loving our bodies, and they're always changing too, right? It's like before kids, after kids, just getting older, like all of these different things. And how often all of us can probably look back and go, gosh, I wish I would have appreciated that body at that age when I had that body, right? And being able to just talk kindly to our bodies and appreciate and love our bodies is such a great way to kind of wrap up and end today. Annie, you talked about dancing, and someone else was talking about dancing too, like moving your body and like have it be an expression of being turned on, having it be an expression of like, this feels good, and I can't remember where I heard this, but it was very recently. And they were talking about the difference between, I think it was Mama Gina. She was talking about like, there's a difference when you dance and move your hips and versus just like a foot dance, like a line dance or like a clogging versus like a hip movement, right? So like the pleasure comes in like moving your body and your hips. So I invite you this week to dance and move your hips, like activate, right, your pelvis and your hips. And the other thing that we won't go into now, but I do want to dive into this because I'm very, very activated and focused on the creation of the women's retreat that is every May. It's a womb healing and activation retreat. And this retreat is powerful. It's 10 years now, and Courtney's done it with me for 6 or 7 of these years. And it's just this, I think about the rose and all the petals of the rose and the ever unfolding rose. And it's like every year there's like another layer, there's another thing, and in this retreat. And part of this opening up as women and being aware, there's so much connection to your pelvic floor and your throat. And women, we've shut this down because we've shut the pelvic floor down because it hasn't always felt safe. There are things that have happened in our lives that have caused us to retract, and that retraction affects your throat and your pelvis. So I'm going to invite you to move your body, move your hips, and sing and activate those two things at the same time. And it's going to feel really empowering. And if you need to scream, scream. Like if you need to yell, yell. If you need to like let it out, girl, let it out. You have full permission from yourself. Your body wants to express, like express it, be big, take up space. Don't feel like you have to, be a certain way. The art of being a woman is to be fully expressive and to honor your body and to honor the way you move. And so whatever feels good to you, let your body move in a way that feels good. Move those hips and sing. Use that voice along with it, because there's a lot going on there, and it's very empowering to unlock that. And it will be interesting to see too what activates in you, right? Like, again, these are all practices to get out of your mind, get out of your head, and get back into your body. So I'm going to invite you now to come back to what we talked about when we very, very first started. And so if you will close your eyes again, I want you to come back to your body again. And I just want you to notice this time, when you speak the words to yourself, I receive. How does that feel? I receive, I give myself permission for pleasure. And just notice how it lands in your body. And as you're noticing that, I'm going to invite you to ask yourself one question. And that is, what do you need, sweetheart? What do you need, sweetheart? And take your time to listen to your intuition for what you need. What do you need, sweetheart? You can take this one step deeper and you can say, what do I desire? What do I desire? When you're ready, you can blink open your eyes and I invite you to write down what do you need and what do you desire. And the need can be one that maybe sometimes lands a little bit faster or a little bit easier, especially if there's a need, right? It's like more pressing. But then that, what do I desire? And explore that deeper. If nothing came up with the desire or you just kind of got one thing, just spend a little bit more time with it today. Thank you all for showing up. I'm excited to host us for a Turn On Lunch gathering and create and find pleasure in your life today. And I want to hear about it. Please share. Please share. It seems like we're more active on the Instagram thread, which is great for me. I'm open to both Facebook and Instagram, but share. Please, please share. I'd like to keep this conversation going and we can continue to inspire each other. So thank you for being here and have a great day filled with lots of pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.